Newbert. She is the managing director and co-founder of the Skipping Stone Foundation. They are a trans rights group based in Calgary. Thanks for taking the time for CTV. Good to have you with us today on this coverage. Your thoughts on what we're seeing in Alberta?
I think it's terrifying. It's devastating. And these policies fundamentally are a death sentence to trans and gender youth that erode at the very foundation of their support.
And, you know, we're trying to get some of the contours, sir, what exactly this is going to mean or not, and it's a little bit vague at this point. Tell me what you're hearing immediately, though, from people who use your organization, Amelia.
I think when we look at folks who, use our organization, when we look at trans folks right across the province, we see fundamentally every day, the significantly higher prevalence of anxiety, depression, suicidality, self-harming behaviors amongst trans and gender diverse folks, especially trans and gender diverse youth. And that's because of the trauma and discrimination that they're exposed to on a daily basis. But we also know, and the work we do here is if we can connect them with access to affirming healthcare, affirming supports, and work to create a safe and inclusive space in schools, that those risks drop dramatically. And these policies introduced by the government fundamentally take aim at those two major pillars. And that's why I say this is going to cost lives. People are disheartened, people are hurting, and people fundamentally don't feel safe and don't feel that they can trust their government.
We're going to show our viewers, Amelia, as you're with us here, some of the takeaways that Danielle Smith has talked about in that video she issued on Wednesday. Number one, children 15 and under would need prior parental consent to change their names or pronouns at school. Female athletes given the choice to compete in women's only sports divisions if they don't want to compete against trans women. And it goes on to talk about some of the medical care, prohibit hormonal treatments, puberty blockers, gender surgery for children 15 years and under, and parents would have to opt in to sex ed classes for their kids on sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex ed in general. The issue about the gender surgery for children 15 and under, I'm curious if you can tell me the impact that some of that might have, the surgeries, the puberty blockers, hormones, and what you think that might mean.
A lot of this fundamentally, and I want to kind of dismantle some of what's being shared. And when we talk about the premier playing, politicizing for political gain to speak to, a portion of her base at the expense of trans folks, this is a great example because, she presents this like trans and gender diverse kiddos who are like 5 years old and 6 years old are getting gender affirming surgeries. Right now, within the sort of province of Alberta, there is no trans and gender diverse folks who are under 18. And if they are accessing those surgeries, it's with enthusiastic parental consent from their mental health and medical team, and they're going out of province to do it. And so the impact of, limiting sort of access around puberty suppressing medication has a huge impact on kiddos who are developing. But I think when we start to look at that as a whole, these policies are really feeding into so many of these hateful myths about trans and gender diverse folks. And they're about perpetuating that hate, perpetuating erasure and injustice towards trans and gender diverse folks, and not really looking at, and have nothing to do with parental rights or protecting youth at all.
Yeah, well, that's what the premier has said. She said, look, I support equal treatment for everyone in Alberta, trans Albertans and everyone. And this is about parental rights. This is about protecting kids who are minors under the age of 18. You don't buy that?
Not at all. You can't sit there like she did in her message and go to the trans and gender diverse community. I love you. I see you. You're worthy. Now I'm going to take away huge portions of your rights that are actually protected by the Alberta Human Rights Act or bill, and rights that are protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. You can't say we're going to take away your fundamental, legislatively protective right, but we still see you and love you. That is so disingenuous, and I think so speaks to the intention of this work, which is, again, to systematically marginalize trans and gender diverse communities.
You think this is largely about politics as well, right? To the conservative base of the United Conservative Party?
I think absolutely. I think the premier is playing politics. I think it's going to affect the lives, and I think it's going to cost lives within the trans and gender diverse community. What gets missed in all of these politics and when we talk about supporting trans and gender diverse youth is actually something really simple. It's, are we creating a space where we're teaching our kiddos that who they are is worthy of unconditional love, no matter who they are? Or are we teaching them self-hatred, that part of who they are they need to be ashamed of or concealed away? And when we look at it through that lens, are we teaching love or are we teaching concealment and shame? This is a really easy choice. And we've seen time and time again with the youth and the folks that we support here, as well as families. We've supported thousands of Albertans. When parents connect with that, they almost unanimously, or what, afraid is this rhetoric, and this rhetoric has a political base. And so I'd like to see us returning to what really matters, which is, are we living in a place where we want to teach our kids that they're worthy and they're worthy of respect and love unconditionally? Or are we living in a place where we want to teach the youth fear? And I think that's a really simple answer. We always choose love.
Amelia Newbert joining us from Calgary with the Skipping Stone Foundation. Thanks for taking the time for CTV today. We appreciate you coming on the program.